For KRVN Sports, I'm Jason Jorgensen. The Husker baseball team begins its season this week with a trip out west California with 4 games against San Diego. This week, I had a chance to talk to the voice of the Huskers, Greg Sharpe, about the opening weekend of the season for the Big Red.
Absolutely, Jason. Always great to be with you. It's so much fun. You just get past Valentine's Day, and here's the college baseball season. And I know Husker fans are really anxious to see what Will Bolt and the staff have been able to do in the offseason to put together a team, and anxious for this thing to get underway.
How about this team and the makeup of it? They certainly went out and tried to infuse it with some talent, with some newcomers, but there's also a lot of holdovers. There's a lot of experience on this team. How do you feel this all comes together?
It's a darn near 50-50 split of guys who were on last year's team and newcomers. So pretty aggressive offseason for Coach Bolt and the staff to go find guys like Jace Kaminska, who's going to be a weekend starter out of Wichita State, who put up impressive numbers, and then Charlie Fisher, a good hitting first baseman from Southern Miss. But then, as you mentioned, you've got the returnees like a Max Anderson, who now is into his third season of a full-time guy, and Bryce Matthews, a third season, a veteran player on this team. And then you've got some guys who decided to come back and take advantage of the COVID years, and Shea Shanneman and Griffin Everett and Efrain Cervantes and Kyle Perry. And so I think it's an interesting blend. And, you know, the coaches are really happy with what the off season was like, the direction, the leadership they were seeing from the clubhouse. So all that looks like a positive thing. And so all ready to launch this 56-game schedule here on Friday.
As you look at this, where's the one area where they need to be better so they don't struggle like they did a year ago?
Yeah, it's offensively. It really is. And, you know, people say, oh, the pitching. Well, they pitched it pretty darn well. They had to overcome some injuries, but I thought Jeff Christie found some magic to do that. But this team only hit 250 last year. In this age of college baseball where offensive numbers are up, they weren't for the Huskers last year. And so, you know, if the other team put 4 or 5 runs on the board, Nebraska was probably going to lose a lot of those games. So they've got to be better 1 through 9 in the offensive side. Number 2 for me would be defense. The defense was not as good last year. They fielded under a 970 fielding percentage. That needs to be better as well. I think the pitching will be pretty good, but can this lineup produce? Can this lineup hit some long balls? The home run balls in college baseball have been up dramatically the last couple of years, but they haven't been for Nebraska baseball. So I'm hoping there's a little bit more pop in that lineup.
Also seemed like a year ago in watching the games and listening to your broadcast, Nebraska's clutch hitting last year wasn't very good at all.
No, it wasn't. And you know, it was really kind of a step back for a guy like Max Anderson. He did not have as good a year as he did as a freshman. Now, as a freshman, he had more protection in that lineup with Spencer Schwellenbach and Joe Acker and Mojo Hagee, veteran, and Jackson Hallmark, guys who were veterans and did do some of the heavy lifting themselves. It was more on Max last year, and he didn't. But I think Max will be ready to respond this year and to get back kind of some of the numbers he put up as a freshman as a big bopper in that lineup and a guy that you want up in key situations to come up with a big hit.
It's always good to get off to a good start, especially when you're coming off a disappointing season. What kind of competition are they going to run into out in California against San Diego?
Yeah, it's a good team. They won the West Coast Conference last year, picked to win it again this year. The good news is their best player a year ago was their Friday night starter, who was a second-round draft pick in the Major League Draft last June. He is gone, but this is a pretty good team. And so, you know, this is a weekend with a 4-game series. I think you'd be happy if you got out of there 2-2. Then next weekend, they're off to Mobile, Alabama to play South Alabama. That would be a team I think Nebraska would be favored to go win a series. And then the third weekend, the third weekend's going to be fun, Jason. They're headed up to U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. That's the home of the Vikings. They convert that into a baseball stadium. They're going to play Vanderbilt on Friday, Ole Miss on Sunday, and then Hawaii in the mid-game on Saturday. So you've got the defending national champion Rebels on Sunday, and then a perennial College World Series team in Vanderbilt. That's going to be a great test for the Huskers in weekend 3.
That's quite the non-conference schedule. Are you surprised they were as aggressive with that coming off a season in which they struggled?
No, you have to. I mean, Will Bolt is never going to lower the bar of expectation. He was asked last week at a press gathering, you know, what would make a good season? And he goes, I'm never going to back away from saying, for us, the goal is always to host a regional. Well, to do that, you have to play a really competitive non-conference schedule. to build up your strength of schedule, because the Big Ten still is not a great baseball league. I think it's better than a lot of people nationally think that it is, but you better build up your strength of schedule, and then you better go win a couple games against these good teams like the Vandy's or the Ole Miss to show people that maybe you should be a regional host. So I love the fact that Will Bolt sets that bar high, not just, hey, we want to get in the postseason. He sets it high. We want to host postseason play. I think that's a difference maker, and kind of what separates Nebraska baseball from some of the other sports.
And that was the voice of the Huskers, Greg Sharpe. So Nebraska opens up on Friday night, 8 Central Time against San Diego. For KRVN Sports, I'm Jason Jorgensen.